Another solid episode. Dragon Ball Daima just continues to pop with some bangers. Now, we did have, quote-unquote, the worst episode of the season a couple episodes ago, but I think we came back from that pretty quickly. I did enjoy this episode. A lot of people are giving reasons why they don't enjoy it. I don't want to say your opinion's invalid, because I do see those concerns, and I do think those are valid criticisms of this episode, but I don't think it's as bad as people are claiming, and it's definitely not great. We'll get into the complexity of that and the nuance of that opinion. So we'll go ahead and go into this episode how I always like to do it. We like to break it down scene by scene for the most part. A lot of the action stuff I leave to the YouTubers that break down animation, and I'll just tell you it's good or not. And then we'll get into the previews because we have some spoilers. That's right, we actually have some leaks about what's coming up in February. I'll go ahead and give you a warning before we get into the spoiler section. So first of all, I wanted to touch on this. They're using guns. Now, what I liked about this scene is you still have Vegeta carrying Bulma, and I just like their relationship. I think it's endearing. It's sweet. But, of course, they're using guns. They're running from guns. Supreme Kai is holding his ears. Okay, Supreme Kai. And I can't really fault him because these guns are causing Goku to even get paralyzed, basically. A shot can incapacitate you. Watch yourself. Same thing happens to Vegeta. And Vegeta gets so incapacitated, he needs those bugs. He needs a revive bug after one shot, which is interesting. Goku didn't need one. I think a lot of Vegeta fans are going to have a hard time defending this. But I do think we have a problem. And I think a problem that a lot of people have with this episode is this is a big bulk of like the first half of the episode before you jump into this stuff with the third eye and they give you the flashback stuff. So a lot of people were complaining that it's a little filler-ish. Now, I don't think it's filler-ish because it does still advance the plot, but it definitely slows it down a little bit. For example, did we really need to spend an episode focusing on, Goku and Co. getting attacked by basically guns? I know they're not exactly the same as guns as they function on Earth, but like they say, they're basically guns and they just are there to incapacitate our heroes. And a lot of people were complaining about that. Now, I do think it's valid criticism. Now, Goku did get shot, remember, by Sorbet in the Resurrection F arc/movie. And of course, we know this connects to Dragon Ball Super. So are they establishing in this show that Goku is not immune to these, bullets, these blasts or whatever, these shots from these energy guns? And basically, they're going to tie that into Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F. Whenever Goku has his guard down, boom, he gets hit. We know they're not immune. I think the logic and reasoning is that Goku would obviously bulk up and be able to block the energy blast or whatever, the energy shot from the gun. But in this situation, he's supposedly depowered. Now, how depowered is he? That's a good question because we've been shown that they are actually fairly powerful still as children, but they're still running from, shots that shouldn't really affect them if they were adults, theoretically speaking. Again, this is opening up a whole conversation around power scaling and how powerful are they at this time. I mean, even if they're... So basically, the assumption is that these guards must be around Frieza level or something, and, there's just so many of them, they can't take them all on. It's come on, what are we doing here? So I do understand that perspective of it just doesn't feel right. Just doesn't feel good. Just doesn't feel like it makes sense with the characters. Anyway, we'll go ahead and move on from that and get into this third eye lore. So Goma finally knows that Hybis has the third eye. And then, of course, we cut back to this little battle where, Goma's men, the Gendarmerie, run away. They're scared. And then, of course, Goku and Co. advance to the capital, Goma's castle. And then we get the flashback. Now, this is interesting because you literally just put it inside your head. I guess your head automatically makes room for it, right? And so, yeah, basically, Goma sends Degisu to get the belt. Don't let anyone notice what you're up to. Got it? So, yeah, he doesn't really. I think that what happens later in this episode with that one girl and Hybis is basically Degisu. We'll get into that. So let's get into this flashback. So the third eye, also known as the tertian oculus. Nobody's calling it the tertian oculus. Everybody's calling it the third eye. Basically, if you have this thing, it's going to be way easier to be a Demon King. And then they showed a few Demon Kings of the past. They were pretty cool, like little artworks and things. I don't want to get too into that, basically, but a lot of people were saying that this guy resembles Ozato or something from Dragon Ball Heroes. If you're a Dragon Ball Heroes fan, good for you. Now, this is interesting. So, we know it gives you a power-up, but nobody has been able to clearly define what that indicates. Then we get a pretty good idea. So, you become capable of wielding unworldly power. As you can see, boom. You didn't get a camera zoom in. This is, I believe, Abra. Boom. Bulks up, gets way more powerful. So, imagine a Saiyan with the third eye. We'll get into that. That's just a theory, but it could hold some weight. I mean, obviously, it's physically transforming him, so it's got to physically transform anybody that gets to the third eye. And then, of course, we know that Dabura wanted to supplant his father and basically, take the throne, and that's what he ended up doing. So he hired some lackey to steal the third eye. And then he, of course, loses it in the forest in the third demon realm after he gets basically killed. And then Dabura does not care. Now, I saw some people complaining about this, saying it's a bit of a plot hole. Like, what do you mean Dabura knows that there's this powerful thing called the third eye just laying around in the third demon realm that basically makes it way easier for him to rule, and he's just going to say, who cares? I'm king now. So obviously they're establishing that Dabura is more powerful basically he's more powerful than his dad without the third eye. So maybe Dabura, they're basically trying to tell us that he doesn't feel like he needs it because he was able to take down his dad without having to need the third eye. But in that case, you still want to have the third eye regardless. So I definitely think that's valid criticism as well. Like Dabura, you're seriously not going to make any effort to try to find it at least. I think that would have made sense if he at least made an effort. And then we also find out, because this was something I was wondering about, why is Goma next in line after Dabura? Like, they didn't explain that. Well, now they have. Took a while, but they did. He was passed on to, the throne was passed on to the Vice Supreme Demon King Goma. So basically the Vice President, which is funny. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, this reminds me of the Hand of the King in Game of Thrones. So I guess the same logic applies. Goma was probably acting with a lot of authority that Dabura had. Obviously, of course, though, answering to Dabura. And then here's the shot of Hybus finding the third eye. One thing I want to say, again, this show continues to look absolutely gorgeous, and I think a lot of people are taking it for granted. Seriously, I'm not trying to say like, oh, you need to appreciate it, and if you're complaining about the quality of the story, then F you. But what I'm saying is, you can't deny this thing looks amazingly gorgeous. Like, especially this shot here. Look at all these colors and the shading and the filter over the animation. It just looks great. Now, I wanted to spotlight this because this really reminded me of the Red Ribbon Army headquarters that Goku goes to in the original Dragon Ball, where he takes down a whole army as a kid. And now, as a kid, from an adult to a kid, still retains some of his power, still supposed to be pretty powerful and has the mind of an adult, basically. He's having a lot of trouble with these guys. So, a little weird. Again, I think that criticism of this episode is valid to an extent. I mean, again, there's the argument to be made that these Gundamri are more powerful than you may think. But if that's the case, then how has Goku been able to easily dispatch several of them throughout this series? I just don't know how to square that. I guess you could make the argument that these are the ones stationed at the castle, so they have to be more powerful than the ones that we saw Goku fight in the third demon realm. But again, I don't know how much that makes sense, really. Now, again, the funny thing with Goku is he's asking Neva to help him. Neva made that shield. Can't you think of something? Neva's like, I'm an old man. I'm just here to help you with your wish. So again, Neva's doing that non-interventionist thing that he does. I think that's an interesting thing to do with his character to help justify his existence. Like, yes, he's super powerful, but he is not going to get involved with your affairs, Goku. I mean, I guess it's a fun way to just kind of keep him tagging along for the ride and stuff, but I definitely think that it could have been cool if he'd done something that was non-violent, Like maybe created some sort of shield or something. But again, that's just me asking for him to have new abilities that, maybe Toriyama didn't want him to have. So, I don't know if that's I don't think that's necessarily a valid criticism for me to say that he could have done something. But just the fact that he's refusing to do anything is something, at least, that makes you go, huh, All right, Neva, so not only are you non-violent, but you also don't want to get involved. Okay, you're just here to help you with your wish. Got it. So this chick, this is something Toriyama does often. And of course, this reminds me of the original Dragon Ball when Goku met Bulma. Bulma's like, oh, I'll let you take a peek. And then Goku's like, why do I care about your dirty old fanny? Now, that is the English dub translation that I recall right off the top of my head. But I do know the Japanese version is very similar. Same events, basically. So we get a little bit of a callback to that here. And I think this is something that Toriyama has done often in Dragon Ball. So it makes sense that he's going to repeat it here. Just a same trope, except it's not for like a Dragon Ball or anything. It's for the third eye. And then Hibis, very Goku-like response. He's like, nah, give me that hat. So she gives him the hat. She's like, huh? My hat? Hibis is like, this is cool. I actually thought this was a pretty funny scene, actually. And then she's like, oh. Kind of like that same reaction Bulma had where she was kind of insulted. Yeah, she says she's a little insulted. Now, I do think that she has to be working on the orders of Degasu, right? Because otherwise, how would she know? And then she's got like the colors on that, you know, all of the people working for Goma have. So that's interesting to note. So yeah, I do think that she's basically sent from Degasu. Degasu was told not to be seen or noticed or whatever. So he sent her, and I think she handled it pretty easily. So if this isn't a ploy by Degasu, then, you know, you can go ahead and call me wrong, but I think it's got to be, right? Anyways, so they decide, of course, to try to do something to stop all this fighting from basically being overwhelmed by so many enemies. Again, Goku as a kid was able to take down almost an entire base of Red Ribbon Army soldiers, and whoever he didn't kill, they basically ran. So again, just another complaint there that I've seen people making, that, you know, why is Goku not able to take down an entire base of Gendarmerie? Could have been cool. Maybe he could have turned Super Saiyan 3 and done it, obviously, but it is what it is. I mean, nothing crazy. I mean, this is typical Dragon Ball logic. You're not going to see characters transform, and then all of a sudden, oh, they're going Super Saiyan 3 and fighting, and, you know, fighting to the death and stuff. So I guess it makes sense from that perspective. But again, it's a little off-putting, I guess you could say. Definitely a little weird how they stretch it out like this. And then I liked this. Do and Ku just chilling. I don't know if I had the theory. I think I did, that maybe Ku or Do would turn on one another. I know I've seen some people saying that Do could absorb Ku, but I'm not seeing it. I think, if I'm correct in assuming, I think these two are basically allies. So hopefully by the end of the series, we'll have them spared and they'll be allies. Not necessarily good guys to our crew, but, you know, just chilling in the demon realm, minding their own business. Because I do think that they are basically victims of Dr. Arinsu. They're just being used by Dr. Arinsu. Same logic for Boo, basically. So I think that's why they're trying to make them so likable, is that they're actually not meant to be the final villains. That's interesting. That's not a leak or anything. That's just a theory. And then Dr. Arinsu says, it's almost time. Everything's going according to plan. And of course, she is referencing the fact that Goku and company are heading straight to the castle where she is also at. And, you know, it's an interesting layout. So they're going to go to the Tamagami 1, and they're going to find that Tamagami 1 does not have the Dragon Ball. Gloria is probably going to betray them, and, you know, things are going to go from there. So what is her plan? They have not made it clear yet, but I'm excited to see what's going on. We have 5 episodes left to figure out, so we'll see how things turn out. And then, of course, this part, I was like, oh, okay. So, you know, Pansy's dad basically shows up, the Demon King of the 3rd Demon Realm. Pretty cool guy, honestly. I do like his personality and his character. And then he gets shot out of the sky. The ship blows up. Pansy's like, Dad! And then, boom, they're cool, actually. Actually, we all made it. I like the chick with the sword. I think it's cool, like just swords in general. And I was really curious, since we saw her earlier in the series, to see her in action. And then, boom, you actually see her in action. So that's cool that they actually paid that off. You know, they show her with the sword, and then they actually show her fighting with the sword. So that was a pretty cool moment there that I wanted to highlight. And then I guess Pansy and her dad have like a really good relationship with each other, where, you know, they've probably done this before. She hops on his shoulder and they basically start firing away at other people. Definitely gave me a Rocket and Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy vibe. Of course, that's probably not where this trope, I guess you could say, originated from. But it was the first thing that popped into my mind. Now, this is interesting because Degisu is mentioning the Gendarmerie Force. Goma does not seem too confident in them. Look at that face. He's like, right. The Gendarmerie Force. And then the episode ends with him saying, we helped out a bit. Then it cuts to, the preview. So, before we get into the preview, what did I think of the episode? How would I rate it? Well, honestly, it's a little weird episode because we get some pretty big lore with the third eye, but sometimes lore can't carry an episode as much as I would like it to. We did get some more Deborah, which was a leak that was confirmed. So Geekdom 101 said that we would be seeing flashbacks to Deborah way back. And here we go. We got Deborah flashbacks. Now we did get another clue with what the third eye does, and it's a physical transformation, it looks like, so that's interesting. In terms of quality of the episode, like I said, I did like the humor. I did like how it advanced the story. I did not like the plot device of let's hide from guns for a lot of the episode. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Now, a 6 out of 10 does not mean I hated it. It means I thought it was okay. I kind of liked it, Like I said, it was an upgrade from previous episodes. Not exactly a 7, though. I think I gave the last episode a 7. This one was probably more like a 6 or 6.5. And that's mainly because they were just running and hiding from guns the whole episode. Not necessarily the whole episode, but most of the episode. And I understand, okay, we want to establish certain things, but it just feels weird. We've seen these characters grab bullets before. We saw them handle laser guns before. Again, the problem here is that it just feels weird. It kind of gave people the same vibe that they got whenever Goku got shot by Sorbet by the gun, basically, the laser gun, the ray gun, or whatever you want to call it, in Resurrection F, and people were like, what? And then, of course, the explanation is Goku let down his guard, and then things went on from there. But this is not Goku letting down his guard. This is Goku, actively defending himself. He's a child, sure, but he's super powerful, so this is just a little weird. But again, arguments to be made either way. You could say they were depowered enough that it was a problem for them, but I guess it really depends on where you sit in the power scaling community or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I got to give it a 6 out of 10. All right, now let's get into the preview. And then after I give my brief thoughts on the preview, we'll get into some spoilers/leaks. And I'll tell you beforehand. So, obviously, this is the Gendarmerie Force, the Ginyu Force ripoff, which I think are obviously references to the Ginyu Force. I don't think calling it a ripoff means that you think it's bad. I actually think they're pretty entertaining looking. And then it looks like Vegeta scowling at this guy. I think that they're probably going to be taken out pretty quickly. And then we actually see a look at Degisu. So what's going to happen, I think, is they're going to basically defeat the Gendarmerie Force this episode coming up. And then they're going to get pretty close to the palace. And Degisu does not want them basically to interfere or attack them or attack Goma or things like that. So Degisu is going to try to prevent them from advancing further by threatening to harm Dende with this gun. So makes sense. I was actually thinking about this the other day. Degisu has become not necessarily a joke, but he was mainly a comedic sidekick to Goma. And it's cool to be getting more villain Degisu. Look at those eyes. This is Zamasu eyes. Zamasu has the menacing look in his eyes. Look at that. Look at that evil smile. So I like that Degisu is doing this. He kind of knows how to be threatening in a way. So that's pretty cool. So I'm really excited for this episode. I don't know how much further they're gonna stretch this out in terms of, basically we still don't know what Dr. Arinsu is up to. They are still trying to go for the Dragon Ball. They're gonna run into Goma. We have 5 episodes left, so they have enough space to fill it up with content. So I'm excited. All right, now let's get into the spoilers. All right, so this is the big one. Take this with a massive grain of salt. So Geekdom 101 said he previously revealed this, but he offered some additional details. So let's get into this. So he basically confirmed in a recent live stream that there's going to be a new transformation in February in Dragon Ball Daima. He did not say specifically which episode this is going to appear in. He did not say specifically if it's going to be in the finale or what. But he said there's going to be a new transformation. Now, he went on to say, and this is the new information, this transformation is going to be non-traditional to what you saw in Super. He says that some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it, basically. I think the general gist is it's going to have the fandom split. And he said to expect a meltdown in the fandom. Now, basically what that means is, like I said, some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it. Now, what could this transformation be? Who knows? That's a complete mystery. Now, would it be interesting if someone gets the third eye and the transformation is just them getting larger like it was established here? That could be possible. That could be something that sends the fandom into a meltdown. Now, Geekdom 101 was a little bit careful with his words, so I think I should let him explain it to you.
Going to happen in Dragon Ball is something very different. Transformation that is going to happen in Dragon Ball is something very different from anything in Super. And that's why I know that next month, Kanji, we got 1 month left, bro. Next month, we're going to see the absolute meltdown of the fandom, because there are going to be people who are going to throw babies in the air as to what they're going to do. And there's going to be people who are going to be like, well, what the fuck?
People are going to throw, those people are going to throw the babies on the...
So yeah, that's just basically the gist of it. I wanted to basically play the clip, get his exact wording, just so you guys know. And again, Geekdom 101 does have a very reliable track record when it comes to getting details right in Dragon Ball Daima. That's just how it is. Anyways, guys, that will be it for today's video. Pretty straightforward review of Dragon Ball Daima with a little bit of spoilers at the end to keep you guys on your toes and excited. And again, if you didn't want the spoilers, I did leave a spoiler warning so you guys could just hop off the video. So, yeah. Anyways, that will be it for this video. If you enjoy, make sure you leave a like, comment down below, and please subscribe to keep up to date with all things Dragon Ball news and commentary. And I will see you in the next one. Peace off.